Hi everyone, my name is Andrew. Today I wanted to talk about something I was thinking about just a little bit earlier. I was just down at the supermarket for a moment, and before I got out of the car, I was listening to something, and I was just watching just everybody around me, just walking in and out of the shops and going to their cars in the car park. And even when I was in the supermarket, I was just, I often notice things anyway with people. I generally pay a lot of attention to people. I find this quite interesting. But one of the things it's not new to me to notice this, but I was just thinking about it today, is when you look at people when you're walking past them, and sometimes just even in the distance, looking at looking at their face, looking in their eyes, and you can tell a lot from people about perhaps how they're feeling at that moment. I mean, there's a lot of sadness in people, a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, bitterness. There's all these sort of negative aspects, and I'm not saying that's the only thing in people. I'm focusing on that at the moment, but obviously you can see joy as well. I mean, you may have seen it too when you're talking to someone and they've got this energy like, "Hi, how you going?" When you're at the checkout or whatever it is. And unfortunately, it's not that common, I find. But what I'm trying to get at here more about is looking at people's faces, because, and you notice this probably more when people get older, is that their face often droops down a little bit, like their their lips, instead of, you smile, it's sort of got an upward shape. It's more of a downward sort of uh, shape on a lot of people's faces, in their mouth, it's the whole demeanor of their face. It's just very downward. It looks grey. There's no light in them. Um, that you can see it. You can see it. I'm sure you know what I mean. I'm sure you've seen it before. You can see when someone just looks really sour, for instance, as an example. Not saying everybody looks that way when they're feeling down, but the reason I bring it up, particularly when people as they get older, is that if you've had a lifetime of having, uh, say, sour thoughts, negative thoughts, well, it shows on the face. You can't hide that stuff. It really does show. It just builds upon the face in every line. And the opposite happens too. Someone who's generally had a life where they've thought in a very positive way, a very joyful way, the best that they can, and look at life a certain way. Even as they age, they have an uplifting look on their face. They have smile lines. They're actually quite attractive, really. It's not a bad thing at all. Like, a lot of people talk about wrinkles not being great, but it's actually, I think, quite an attractive thing to see on people's faces as they age, to see the joy, like almost joy in the creases in their face, rather than the ones that seem very sad and down in their face. And I'm not making a judgment on people here at all to say that, one person's better than the other because of that. What I'm really getting at in this video, and what we'll talk about, is the importance of really what is going on inside our own minds. As I said, that what we see on the outward part of our faces a lot of the time, even how people hold their posture sometimes, when they're downward, when they're depressed, they're very down. The body's, it's not up with the chest out sort of thing. It's shoulders generally in, maybe crouched a little bit down, looking down. These things are very obvious sort of things, and to often, see how people are feeling or thinking or in their lives. And look, that can happen at points of time in our lives, when we've had a lot of sadness, sure. But I'm not just talking about a brief thing. I'm talking about essentially a lifestyle of sadness, of unhappiness, and it really comes from our thoughts. And I said a lot of the time people have sour thoughts about the world, about themselves, and bitterness, and they can't see any good in anything. And anytime they see good in someone else, perhaps they try and knock it down. There's a lot of people like that in the world. Unfortunately, I interact with them almost every day, and I don't I don't mean that as a bad thing for me. I mean for them. It's unfortunate that they are that way for whatever reason. And the other interesting thing about this that some of you may have experienced before in yourself is when you are confident and feel a lot of joy in yourself. When people are like that, they tend to repel you. Like, they don't tend to like you, for whatever reason, not even on a conscious level. uh, but anyway, that's not something I really need to get into. But it's an interesting thing anyway in itself. So again, when I was in the supermarket today, I saw some people, and there's some regular people who work there, and one of the guys I saw today, he often has a very downward look on himself and that. And I've spoken to him before, and I've seen him light up. I've seen him cheer up. We can do that with people to some degree if they're open and receptive to it. And the fact that he wasn't feeling that way, and just how he was walking, and see it on his face, and people look very glum. And I thought, I wonder what he's thinking about. I wonder what's going around in his mind, that the thoughts that cycle around. And I've mentioned this before in videos. It's like a loop that just keeps going around. I mean, that's essentially what we talk about when people, what's the word? Can't get it today. Ruminate on their thoughts. They keep going around and around. They keep on, and this is where a lot of the problems come with when depression comes in, and anxiety, for instance. It's this rumination of just going around and around and around, that eventually brings you to a certain place, because it just keeps going around. It gains energy, it gains momentum. And the thing is, we need to counteract that. We need to become aware of this and what's happening, and then say, okay, I need to turn this around before this gets worse. Okay, and that's can happen. Like, we can have sadness, sure, but sadness can turn into depression if we allow it. And it's a sort of critical thinking a lot of the time, that negative thoughts come in our mind, and then we, because we're already feeling a little sad, we'll just take it on board. And it's really interesting how we all tend to do this, that when we're feeling low and we get a negative thought about ourselves or about life or whatever it is, we attach on and go, yeah, that must be it, sort of attitude, like, oh, life sucks or whatever, and then we might think in the moment, yeah, it does, because of something that's happened, or a series of things that have happened in the, maybe that day or over weeks or months even. But something finally gets to you and you start to think like that. And then other thoughts will start coming based on that, and you'll start building momentum in this sort of loop. But you're putting in the wrong things. You're putting in these poisonous thoughts, and they are toxic to our minds and our bodies as well. I mean, that's what psychosomatic medicine is. It's the fact that we can make ourselves sick through our own thoughts. And that's a really interesting topic in itself, about, where illnesses turn up in the body. We can relate to unresolved issues too. That's another video in itself, I suppose. I'm not going to delve into that right now. So the awareness of our thoughts. So if you are feeling particularly a certain way at the moment, in perhaps not a sort of a negative sort of feeling, emotions at the moment, experiences of anxiety, depression, or whatever it may be, try and work out what it is you're actually telling yourself. Write it down. Honestly, it's good to get things out on paper, because it's hard to capture things sometimes in your mind to really concrete them. But when you get it on paper, you can kind of really see, wow, this is what I'm thinking. That's what I'm saying to myself. And even when you do that, you may still think, well, yeah, it's true. All this negative stuff. Oh, it's true. It's true about myself. It's not really true. It's only your subjective opinion about yourself at that point of time, based on your emotions. So it's really interesting how we do that to ourselves, and it's not helpful, and it's not particularly healthy. And we do need to work against it. And it does take effort, and it often feels like it's not going to help at all. Like, we feel so stuck in our feelings and thoughts that we feel that it becomes so real, because we've done it for so long, that we can't believe anything outside of that that's positive. And this is where we need to cultivate a healthy lifestyle. And a healthy lifestyle it contains many things. So obviously the thoughts, absolutely very important. We're like a big sponge in a sense. We're absorbing things from our environment all the time, through what people are saying, things we're listening to, whether it be music or the news, or reading things, what we consume in terms of food, and how that affects our chemistry within ourselves, just our environment, our experiences, other people in whatever capacity that may be, even ourselves, how we look at things, based on, again, what's going on outside ourselves. Anyway, there's a lot of different things that can go on, but we absorb these things, And these things can either be helpful or a hindrance to us. And unfortunately, we have a lot of things working against us in our society. So we need to be very mindful of what is affecting us, and take action the best we can to remove things that are really working against us, and those things that we can't, well, finding a way to best manage those things so they don't become a big problem in our lives. And that can be challenging in certain areas, particularly when it comes to other people, particularly family and friends, because we have a whole bunch of ideas, particularly about things such as, we can have toxic family members, and that can be a hard realization to make for a lot of people, that actually, perhaps my parents weren't so great, or my siblings, or whatever it is. That can be a hard realization in itself. But then when we make that, it's sort of like, well, what do we do about that? And the idea of disconnecting from family can be challenging, because we have this idea that, and I'm sure you've heard it before, people say, that it's family, it's your family. But it's like, I say to people, well, so what? Really, what difference does it make if someone's your family or not if they don't treat you well? And that can be a really big thing for people to come to terms with, because, as I said, we're often sold this thing. Well, it's your parents. You can't turn away from your parents. You can't do this. You can't. Well, yes, you can. Of course, you can. Now, we need to work out for ourselves that if that's what is right for us to turn away completely from someone or not. Maybe we need to create some boundaries or distance ourselves to some degree. And sometimes we do need to cut people off. If we have reasonable family members, perhaps we can work through things. But let's be honest. I know from experience, looking at my own life and other people's lives, that we're all at different places in our lives in terms of awareness and our expansion of our consciousness. And so some people can be quite immature, no matter what age they are, and they're not open to look at other people's points of view, for instance. And that's a problem, because if there's conflict between two people, we need to try and understand one another so we can find a resolution, and find respect in that too. Even if we can't see eye to eye on things, we can still respect each other and still have a relationship with people. But unfortunately, that's not generally what happens a lot of the time. So we need to work that out for ourselves. But coming back to the thoughts and what we're thinking, as I said, it's good to write these things down. What are we telling ourselves about ourselves? And then perhaps ask ourselves, is this really true, or is it only what I'm telling myself that is true? Because there's often a big difference. Our reality for all of us is subjective. That means it's personal. And it's really only based on how we tell ourselves about things. And that comes from, a lot of the time, conditioning that we've come up with through growing up with our families, but also through society. There's a lot of conditioning which puts a lot of pressure on us about how to think. So because a lot of the time people don't give themselves a lot of time to have some silence to process their own thoughts, and they're always being blaring, whether it's even just music, even with no words, it doesn't really matter. But if you're listening to a lot of content or reading a lot of content, what you're really doing is you're filling your own mind with other people's thoughts. Now, that's not a problem. I'm not saying not to do that, but we need to balance it out. And that's one thing I have noticed in people's lives. They don't have that balance. So then what happens is, if you're doing that day in, day out, you don't really know what your own thoughts are. It's so filled with a mixture of other people's ideas. And the issue really comes in too when you've got lots of ideas that are contradictory to one another. And then that can cause a great amount of confusion within ourselves. So it's good to listen to a little bit of content here and there, and then maybe think about it, reflect on it. Do I really agree with that? And if so, why? Or if not, why? Think about it. We've got to think for ourselves. That's one thing we're really lacking a lot in this world, is critical thinking. People spending some time to think and think about what other people are saying, not just to accept it. So that happens a lot, That's not, yeah. So that's something we really need to be mindful of. But then we also need to Oops, sorry there, I just pressed the pause button. I lost my trail of thought now. So I was just saying about thoughts and spending time, having some time for ourselves, to think for ourselves, to let our minds rest, and then let this aspect of ourselves come through, so we really get to know our own thoughts that come through, without filling our head with everybody else's ideas. And particularly if they're really negative. There's a lot of content out there that's telling us about how terrible the world is and other people are and all that, but we really need to balance that out. Now, I'm not to say that we live in some sort of false reality of, oh, everything's positive, just be positive all the time and everything will be positive. Well, no, that's not realistic. There is a lot of that in New Age thinking and a lot of spirituality that just think positive is all you have to do. That's quite unhealthy, actually, because that doesn't allow any room for us to feel and process our emotions, that don't feel so good. That's another topic too, I suppose, in itself. But I really encourage you to, well, a couple of things is to spend some time thinking about your life in ways that allow your own thoughts to come through. And that's maybe jumping ahead a little bit there, because particularly if we're thinking negative, we really need to start, as I said, cultivating a more positive mindset. And we do that by, well, a number of ways. One thing that is good to do is seek out a lot of positivity in terms of something to balance out the negativity of the day. So listening to uplifting, positive things, motivational speakers. I know some of them can be a little irritating, actually. I've heard some people, or even a little condescending. I get that, but even that, there are some great ones out there, and just find whatever resonates with you. But even if you don't get a lot out of it, you're still subjecting yourself to some positivity in your day. And then is to look at working against the tide of the negative thinking. Is, as I said, once you've written things down about the negative thoughts, thinking, well, what do I really want to feel in my life? Because really, a lot of things we ever do in life, we only do it because of how we want to feel. So when people say they want to be in a romantic relationship, yeah, there's a lot of different things that come with that. But really, it's because they want the experience of that and how that's going to make them feel. It's not the relationship itself, it's how they think it's going to make them feel. And a lot of the time it doesn't work out that way, unfortunately, for various reasons. But the same thing, like if you think, well, I would like to have X amount of money, or a certain type of job, or live in a certain place, or go to a certain place, or whatever it is. What you're after is how it's going to make you feel, or how you think it's going to make you feel. So really what you're after is the feeling, not the thing. And that really comes from within inside ourselves. And as strange as it can seem when we're feeling very negative, we can turn this around. If you're feeling no love for yourself, well, there is often work we need to do there. We need to think, well, why is that? What's blocking me from feeling the love within myself? And, well, you can do this by, I said, listening to positive things, maybe about. You could look up things to do with about how to feel more love for yourself. These sort of things in itself. If you're starting to notice in your thoughts things that you don't want to have, but you want to feel the opposite, well, then seek that out. Seek that out. We need to take control of our own lives and empower ourselves by not waiting for anybody else to do it for us. Say, listen, if I'm not feeling the thing I want to feel, what do I need to do to feel that? Like, seek things out. So much content out there, whether it's on the website, just internet, or on YouTube or whatever, of different methods and tactics and techniques for us to feel, to release things and work on ourselves. We need to do this stuff to feel good. We do. There's things, all of us have things inside ourselves that we need to work through and work on, so we can keep moving towards and cultivating this sense of joy in our lives. So, and in a way, so much so that we do build up this storehouse within ourselves of just, joy and happiness, and things that cannot be taken from us, because we're not building it upon things outside ourselves. We're doing it with inside ourselves. So if things do go really wrong in a material sense in our lives, we can still find, hey, I've still got this happiness and joy within me because I've worked on myself, and I've come to the realization that it all happens within inside myself anyway. So if I've been doing the work to cultivate this joy, this happiness within inside myself, well, it's going to be beneficial in the challenging times, and we know life has ups and downs, and it doesn't mean that just because we worked on ourselves, we're not still going to have some off days and feel sad. And look, you can have a little depressive bout sometimes too, and I'm not talking about ones that lifetime sort of long keep on coming and going. I mean, sometimes you can have a month or something like that of feeling pretty low, and it's pretty hard, and everything doesn't feel great. But again, we keep working through that and knowing what that feels. And I mean, it's hard to say speak about that in a lot of depth because there's so many different scenarios and which way to talk about that. But again, cultivating a healthy thought process. I mean, you could look at this too in terms of fitness. If you want to have a certain type of body, feel fit and strong and muscular, whatever it is you might want in that regard in terms of physical health, well, we generally do exercises to get to that level, and we eat certain foods, and we have some sort of routine to maintain that. But what are most of us doing in terms of doing that for mental and emotional fitness? A lot of the time, not a lot, and it's similar. We need to do exercises to do that, but it's not just a short-term thing. We're creating a new life for ourselves. It's a new lifestyle. So whatever we've been doing in the past hasn't served us. So what we're really ever trying to do when we say have mental health issues is we're trying to become a different version of ourselves, one that doesn't have those problems. Okay, so the only way to do that is start making different choices, because the current routine and choices that you've been doing is still keeping you in the same place. It's the same person, who has those problems. So the person you want to become has to be a different person. They have to start doing things differently, and they have to start working towards cultivating a healthy lifestyle. Okay, and that's many areas. That's spending time in promoting positivity in your life, and healthy thinking and healthy eating, and looking after your physical body, and maintaining healthy, good relationships within your life, should I say. And it's looking at all aspects of our lives and noticing the things that are working against us. Do I need to address this somehow? In what way do I need to do that? Do I need to cut this thing out of my life? Do I need to make some adjustments in some way? Whatever it is, whether it's people, places, things, whatever. And seek out the wisdom of others about what other people have done to find a sense of joy in their lives. One of the greatest things I've noticed in life to do is that if you see someone who has what you want, and I'm not talking about houses. I mean, yes, you could look at it this way, but this is not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about material things here. Well, if you see someone, let's say you're really overweight, and perhaps you see someone who's look quite healthy, and they look really great for their age, really youthful, young. I mean, particularly if it's someone who's of an elderly age and they look fantastic. I mean, that's the sort of person I'd want to go and ask, hey, you look great, you look fantastic, and you have a great energy about you, and I can see your eyes are smiling, and it feels nice to be around you, whatever it is. You don't have to say those words to them, but what I'm getting at here is that this person is obviously doing something that is bringing that to them. It's not just automatic. They've obviously got a lifestyle that is promoting that within them. And again, going back to my start of a video, I see a lot of the sadness in people's faces. I see it. I can feel it. And I know that it's the choices that they're making. It's that simple, okay? I know there's traumas. I know there's traumas in people's lives. That's an aspect, sure. And that stuff does need to be dealt with. But beyond that, just the day-to-day choices people make really work against them. And awareness is one of the greatest things in terms of learning about what is working against us. I mean, social media is as great as it can be in many ways, it's also very, very toxic to most people in many ways, because they're not aware of how it works on the brain when you're on there for extended periods of time. It works, it basically it messes with our dopamine. So we're on there for X amount of time. I mean, I'm just going to jump ahead here, but example, you might do this. I've seen this with other people who, even if you're talking to them, they're talking to you're talking to them or whatever, and then they're on their phone, and they're always going back to their phone every few minutes or something like that. And they sometimes have to have multiple things going because they're trying to get the dopamine hit, because it's getting depleted, because it's like a reward center type thing with dopamine. So it's getting depleted more and more. So they keep doing these sort of things, and then it becomes very addictive. And then when they don't get it, they don't feel as good. And anyway, I'm sort of not probably doing justice here. You can look this stuff up online anyway, even on YouTube. I think that the effects of Facebook on dopamine or something like that. You want more information on that, but I mean, that in itself, that's one thing. Facebook and Instagram would be similar. They can have a very negative effect on us if we overdo it. I say about balance. A lot of people don't have it, and again, eating certain foods, just letting life happen to us, which is what most people do, is not the way to go, because you will potentially end up with one of those people who has a very sad-looking face and maybe quite sour. And I really feel for those people. I really do. And I'm only sharing this with you because I've been there. Some of I've maybe not sour, but very depressed. Suicidally depressed too at times in my life. And I turned it around. I did turn it around. I spent time learning a lot of things and implementing them in my life. It wasn't just waiting for things to happen, and I stopped looking for anyone outside myself to help me in that regard. And I don't mean I didn't do research into things. What I meant was, instead of going to the psychiatrist or psychiatrist or psychologist and popping pills to try to alleviate my symptoms rather than get to the causes, I took charge in my life. I said, well, maybe I don't really know where to look right now, but I'm going to seek out a way to find this. And as I said earlier in this video, that think about what you want to feel. I want to feel in my life, I want to feel love. And I don't mean just in love, as much as nice as that is. And I look forward to enjoying that myself again one day with the right person to have a romantic interest in that regard. And but I can still find that love within inside myself, and I know that because I can do that daily, and I do that daily. I feel joy in me. Every day I start the day, I say a lot of positive things to myself just before I even get out of bed, but I don't just say it. I feel it. That's the thing. You got to try and feel it. I put my hand on my heart, and I just try and feel, with my eyes closed, try and feel in my heart, what does I want to feel? I feel joy, and I just feel it expanding within me. When I breathe in slowly. As I'm breathing in, I think I'm breathing in joy. And I'm feeling every cell of my body filled with joy. I try and feel it. What does it feel like to feel joyful? It's an uplifting feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. You feel joyful. A sense of joy. You have a sense of laughter about life. Humor about life. Peace with inside yourself. I want to feel peace. I want to feel love. I want that love, not just for me. I want it to overflow so that I can share that love with others. And that's just in my very being. It doesn't mean that I have to go out on a mission to try and prove my love to people every day. It means that I have so much love in me that I have compassion when even when people aren't particularly kind to me in the day. I have compassion. I see it, and I feel compassion because I know the love I have and the joy I have within me, they could have too, and they don't have it, and I know how that feels. I want to feel a sense of fulfillment in my life. And even when a lot of things are working against you, and I don't have, at the moment in my life, I don't have all the things I used to have. I've had a lot of loss over the last few years, particularly materially, even in other areas too. But it's like, rather than looking at what I don't have, I look at what do I have today, and what am I grateful for today and how can I, in the best capacity I have, to do the things I love that bring me joy each and every day with what I do have. And see, at least I'm working towards in a step towards what I want to do. And that in itself is actually has a positive effect, because talking about the dopamine, we create a little list each day of things we want to achieve, like simple things, like step-by-step basic things. You don't have to overdo it, but even if you take a big project and you just break it into smaller steps, you'll find you'll achieve a lot. But anyway, the point of this is, if you do a list, and you can tick off, the more things you can tick off in a day, it doesn't matter how simple they are, washing dishes, or remembering to put the key back on the hook, or whatever it is that you have something like that going on, or okay, today I'm going to make sure I put the toilet roll on the, these are very simple basic things, but you'd have other things too, like, okay, I like to do woodwork, okay, I'm going to make sure I cut this amount of pieces of wood out to do this thing, or I'm going to stack my wood better today, because it's, whatever it is, I'm going to put, air in my tires, or clean my windows on my car, or whatever it is. Have a list of things, and the more you tick off, they're actually creating a wonderful thing with your dopamine, like a sense of achievement. The more you achieve goals, doesn't matter how small they are, the more things you can tick off, the better you're going to feel. Something really worth doing. But also you are achieving things no matter how small they are, and that in itself is quite rewarding. You feel like, I haven't wasted my day today, because a lot of people feel like that. Oh, I didn't do anything today. Got nothing done, whatever it is. And a lot of the time people haven't planned for it. But even when I was super duper depressed many, many years ago, I remember these, I couldn't get out of bed. It was unbelievable. I could be in there for like 4 weeks, basically, barely even get out. And it's just unbelievable how depleting that can be. But you know what? Even in those times, I had the mindset, it doesn't matter how small it was, I thought, today, my goal for today is to get up and go to the toilet and eat at least something and have some water. That was it. That was my goal for the day. And you know what? I would do it and I'd achieve it. And I felt, although I still felt depressed, I felt, at least I did that. At least I did that. And I did do it. And there was still a sense, even in the depression, funnily enough, there was a sense of achievement. And I would say that potentially that's what's helped me get out of those depressive spells, the really dark, deep, heavy ones. So anyway, I've sort of gone a bit all over the place with this video. But anyway, I wish you all a wonderful day, as I always do, and night, wherever you are. And I love sharing these videos with you, and I hope you do get something out of them, because, look, I really, it's my belief that no matter how far people are into, depths of despair in their lives, that we can turn things around, but we turn them around first within inside ourselves. And that's why it's so important to block out anything and everything, even if it's for a short time, which I did when I worked on getting better. I was pretty much isolated from most people most of the time, and it was a very challenging time for me. I wouldn't recommend it for most people because, well, a number of reasons, but isolation's not an easy thing. And I really delved into everything in a very big way and cut out everything I could, as much as possible, for a period of time, till I could get myself to a good place where I could handle any of the heavy and negative aspects of life. So look at that in your own lives. It's going to vary for everybody. But I said, there's nothing more important than taking control of your own mental faculties, your own mind. It's so important. There's nothing more important than having that control, and also having the awareness too that your mind is not always your best friend. This is why we need to train it, work on it, because it can be very, very childish or very childlike, in the sense that it doesn't always know what's best for it. We've got a lot of patterns, habits, belief systems that affect it, and therefore affect our lives and our physiology, all sorts of things. So being aware of that too, that sometimes it will try and work against us. Like, example would be, I remember this for personal experience, when I thought I'm going to start getting fit, losing weight, I thought every day, no matter what, I'm going to go for a walk, doesn't matter what. And some of the days it would be cold, very cold, and there'd be terrible wind and everything, and my mind would be like, oh no, don't worry about today, we'll just do it tomorrow or whatever. And then sorry, my phone's buzzing here. Just, I'm just going to pause it for a moment. Yeah, sorry about that. It was very distracting. It's just vibrating there. So when I was trying to, well, not trying, but I was working towards losing weight with walking, my mind was sometimes, it's cold today, don't worry, let's do it tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll do another day. Come up with little excuses. Oh, it's a bit cold today. Whatever it was, and I'd noticed that it was somewhat destructive in a sense, trying to, it's sort of sabotaging myself, or trying to, as well intentioned as it was. It's like, well, you just got to work against that. Say, well, I'm in charge here. We're doing this no matter what. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I feel. This is what we're doing. Okay. Anyway, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here again. I'm going to leave this here. It's quite a long video today. And again, I wish you all the very best. And I do, for any of you who are interested, work one-on-one with coaching. And that information can be found in the description below. And again, I wish you all the very best.